What up, brother?
Hey, how's it going?
So you guys just have companies that launch companies that launch companies that launch companies that list companies? Is this the wormhole way?
You gotta incubate, man. You gotta support the ecosystem. You gotta support the builders every which way you can, right? Anyone
You
comes to us with a good idea and they need help with it, we're here to help. You
you got
know.
to incubate, man. Is like the hat and or t-shirt. I like it. All
Yep.
right, so we wanted to bring you on today because I think yesterday Monad went live. Solana listed it on day one. People's brains were broken a little bit, even though I feel like they weren't quite able to articulate why it felt weird. I think we have this long history of the idea that sort of, I guess, L1 assets are competitive and that you want to sort of maintain that and gate sort of access to your network and all the interesting things on it by requiring people to buy and use their own token. And so this idea of Monad being listed on Solana uh, to some seemed little like a bit of a, I guess, a break in the reality or the norms. And yet I think from like a Solana perspective, with this sort of NASDAQ framing, the idea of listing all assets and having those tradable on the chain, I think very much makes sense. So you guys are behind Sunrise, which is a new platform that lists new on-chain assets from any ecosystem directly into Solana with day one liquidity. Why is this the opportunity that Wormhole is running at today?
I mean, I think it's. I'll step back and just start with the beginning because I think that's a really interesting point that kind of prefaces why do this now. I do think there's been a shift in the conversation. I do think there's just a vibe shift in general in terms of what competition in crypto should look like. And so I think when it comes to why Sunrise exists, it exists because we're all building interoperable, we're all building composable technology, right? Like that is the value. Like the word permissionless, like, you know, it begets the idea that like, hey, you don't need permission to do something, right? And so like the composability factor, I think, is a big one for us. And so what we did, again, this is not a genius idea, but everyone has been complaining about this. Is like, why is everything so fragmented? Why can't you trade Mon day one on Solana? Why is there only sexes and small pools on Mon that's the only venue when you have this entire industry that's been building for a decade plus and creating all this technology. So you can't leverage all of the other technology that's been built, right? That just doesn't make any sense. We know why that's the case. It's a lot of coordination problems. It was some technical problems. Those have largely been solved. And so I think Sunrise is just it's manifesting that energy. It's really the market has been demanding this for so long, and I think the success of the launch is kind of validated that.
Can you talk about how the implementation actually works? And I guess also that the why now question. Bridges have existed for a long time. Wormholes existed for a long time. I guess when this came out, I was surprised that it didn't already exist. So yeah, what does the implementation look like, and why is it enabled now?
I think Sunrise is like three major things, right? It's bridging, or let's say like the technology piece, right? It's the go-to-market strategy, and it's also the liquidity strategy. These are also the same major pain points that Sexes face to list an asset. These are also the same major pain points that founders and teams that build protocols face as well. So if a founder doesn't figure out those three things, the tech, the go-to-market, and the liquidity, if he doesn't do all three of those things well enough, you won't have a successful project, right? Like, and the space is riddled with thousands of these. And you really have to do all three well. Like you have to cross some threshold to do them well. And then how well you do is how well you do those three things, right? And so we know that sexes have a problem doing this, right? That's why they charge insane marketing fees, and you go through this long, lengthy process to get listed on a sex. And that's why sexes don't list 1,000 assets a day. They can, but they've got to build the tech. They've got to be able to support the assets. They've got to be able to bridge out and bridge in those assets. They've got to do a whole laundry list of things. So the listing has to be worth it for them. At the same time, if you don't do all those things well, the experience on a sex, on a DEX, for the product itself that you're putting out there, is actually pretty bad. So you have to do all of these things to actually have a good product, to have a good listing, to have a good market that actually like traders want to trade on and they feel good to trade on. And so Sunrise really just focuses on those 3 pain points, and hopefully does them really well and continues to improve on that process so that when you actually list with Sunrise on Solana, you know you're getting those 3 things, right? And that's what the team that's been working on this is like hyper focused on.
I guess could you walk us through the process of how Mon got on Solana, where the liquidity comes from? Did it
Sunrise leverages the Wormhole NTT framework to be able to bridge Mon into the ecosystem, and then from there it gets turned into liquidity across all of the different dexes. You've got lending pools, you've got a bunch of different partners who have come in to be able to list those things as close to minute zero as possible, as well as perps, as well as all of these other things, as well as like other infrastructure partners that are able to support the listing as well, whether it's the block explorers, whether it's the Oracle feeds from Pyth. All of those things have to be coordinated so that you can actually launch at minute zero, because your real competition is Hyperliquid and Coinbase and Bybit and Binance, right? So like massive orchestration behind the scenes to make sure that this actually works well. And that first minute actually matters. Like that is the point of, you know, trading any asset anywhere at the time that people actually want to do it, right? And not having to force users to like jump through 15 hoops and figure out how to get to some sex or some dex or some chain. Like it can all be available to you just like how you would trade any other asset.
I mean, the very notable thing in my mind is just the website that you guys have up here. It literally has one box for you to connect your wallet and then trade from. There's no effort to describe what's going on here, to overcomplicate it in any way. I think it sort of is a snapshot of kind of the evolution of crypto in some way, where I think we've gone beyond this like deeply in the weeds technical component that seems to overcomplicate things, and instead just driving forward the simple UX that people want. So I think it very much makes sense to me that this website is focused on making it clear that you guys are going to make all sorts of assets very easy to go buy here. I am intrigued though by sort of the, like, is the, and forgive me as not being deep in the Wormhole world, is the liquidity through these entities provided by institutions? Is it provided by individual LPs? I'm looking for a little bit more understanding around how the market structure here works.
The liquidity is provided by any user that wants to bridge over,
Okay.
any trading desk in the ecosystem that wants to do it, any protocol, even the protocols themselves can provide the liquidity. It's really a way to aggregate all of that into one listing at the right exact moment, right? So we don't want to limit that. We don't, you know, there are things in the past that we have seen where people have tried to limit access to the liquidity because it's beneficial to the person providing it, right? They want to extract the most fees, or they want to extract the most, you know, flow, or whatever that is. Our goal was to widen out the net completely, get all of these people aligned and supportive of the effort, and then orchestrate it in a way that can actually deliver what the actual end result that you want to be, which is, hey, be extremely competitive with decentralized exchanges, be extremely competitive with some of the most competitive markets on chain, and try to show that there is a real network effect within Solana, that asset issuers, regardless of whether they're crypto or not, they can be, you know, tokenized funds, they could be tokenized equities, they could be commodities. All these people, you know, can see that, hey, there is a network effect, and you can actually like increase your Lindy effect by listing here.
I mean, could you walk us through, let's say, a project that saw this happen, you know, wants exposure to the you know, pretty captive user base that exists on Solana? Like, what are the things that they have to go do to partner with you guys and ultimately have success?
Reach out. I wish I had more.
Is it like do they have to allocate, you know, a percentage of tokens? Do they have to enter in market maker deals? Like, okay.
Nope, they don't have to do any of that. What they have to, what the biggest qualifier here is, they have to be building something real, something that actually can get people excited. Because like I said, it is an entire ecosystem coming together to believe in something and to, like, you know, be a part of something. So if you're not actually building something like that and you haven't been able to show us at least some significant movement in terms of the tech, in terms of the go-to-market, and in terms of being able to create a community and for people to care about it, then it's going to be really hard for you to get the outcome that we got for Monad.
So I am curious how you are thinking about the roadmap for listings, because this is obviously a much debated discussion in the centralized exchange world, and in many ways, I think we're sort of seeing this like trade-off of like broad accessibility with like the king-making vibes that can kind of come from getting a centralized exchange listing. Obviously, Coinbase and DEXs and Binance, and being like, well, fuck you, pay me because we add a ton of credibility and value by listing you here. What is this strategy that you guys are running after here?
I think we don't want to emulate the business model of like extremely extractive sex listings, right? I think there's a lot of great companies and great protocols and great tokens out there that never kind of reach their full potential because they were never able to like cross that bridge or go through that door. And so like I don't think that's the way that we're thinking about it. We're really, I think our primary like rubric for qualifying something that makes sense for Sunrise is probably like, does the Solana ecosystem actually want it, right? Like already. Because if that's not there, I don't think that we can create it. I don't think like we're approaching 7,000 Mon holders on Solana. Like I didn't create that. Like Sunrise didn't create that. Those are people that were interested. We just brought down the barrier for them to become NADs, and be token holders and believe in that project. So for us, it's like that's going to be the first step of the rubric is like, do people on Solana actually want this? And there's a massive trading community here. There's a massive network here within Solana. It's something that's been said, but I don't think has been like demonstrably proven in a way like this. And so I would say like that's going to be our North Star for a while.
And so how do you think about revenue here? Because I think that probably is a better indication of how you're approaching this.
So revenue can come in a lot of different ways. Obviously there is a front end. You can swap any asset on it. That generates a sizable amount of revenue. I think that in and of itself showed us that like the amount of hits that we got to the website was kind of insane. Yeah. So it's like right there is a revenue strategy that I think is clear. It's something that the industry accepts. I think it's something that users accept as well and understand the value that's being provided there. So I think that making that experience as best as possible is probably going to be the focus for the next 6 months.
Do you have a sense of who the kind of core buyers have been of this token? So I think $80 million of volume. Interested in the breakdown between kind of retail traders, institutions, and maybe DeFi kind of applications, if you have any sense of that.
We are trying to collect all of this data. We have been seeing a bunch of charts and we have a bunch of data, but it's like the last 24 hours has been a little hectic.
Sure.
Yeah, yesterday too. Right? That is
yeah, we just crossed the 24-hour mark like 2 hours ago. So it's like,
fair.
So
fair.
I will
get us your data, brother. Come on.
Yeah, follow Sunrise because we're going to be posting as much data. We're going to post the trading data. We're going to post how many PMMs were involved, how many AMMs were involved, the volume on different forms of exchanges, whether it's perps and other stuff as well. Other products, lending products came out pretty hard as well. People use that, to earn yield on their Mon, so they're keeping it. Yeah, there's so much data that we want to slice and dice and put out there so people can kind of see like what it looks like to tap into this network.
So what was interesting about some of the discourse I saw was that people seemed to think it was very obvious for Solana to do this, but not so obvious for Monad to do this. Can you just put underline the value here that you think Monad sees in bringing this asset to Solana?
Yeah, so I won't speak for the Monad team, but I will give my perspective. I think kind of that shift that I was alluding to at the beginning of the call has a lot to do with how teams kind of look at competition and look at what they're trying to achieve by launching a blockchain or launching a token or launching any kind of asset, right? From first principles. And ultimately, like, Monad wants to create an economy, right? It's not going to compete. It's not going to compete by drawing up the bridges, and putting guards across their entire economy and saying no one can come in. Like, a nation can only grow economically if it's got ports and bridges and airports and roads and highways and all these kinds of things, right? You want as much economic activity as you can get. And so for them, it's like, why would we take a defensive posture, right? Like, we're not going to win because Mon is traded on Monad, right? Like, that's not what we're building. We're going to win because we're going to be able to attract users to applications that actually like have a real value and service a real need, and are new and are differentiated and have a real value proposition, right? And I think Solana ecosystem also takes that mentality, which is like, hey, we're willing to engage with this massive L1 that has great vibes and is purple and it looks very similar to us, and and some of the builders that were on Solana are there now. We're also not going to take a defensive stance and just kind of like bolt down our doors and be like, no one can leave. This is how we win. We just slowly bleed until we die in how many years. No, they're like, hey, like, let's lean into the competition. We think we're going to be able to build the best execution for these use cases. We think we're going to believe in our ecosystem. Same thing with Monad. We're going to believe in our ecosystem. We're going to believe in our builders. So hell yeah, if I can get 7,000 holders that believe in Monad's vision on Solana, let's do it. Because I'm not going to win because my asset is only traded on my blockchain. It's a proposition.
We've been sort of diving into some of Santiago's posts about sort of the valuation of crypto. Have you seen any of his writings or the debate back and forth? Okay, so maybe more generally, because I think like the introduction of these, thinking of these blockchains as economies seems very right to me, and also maybe in an era where we're seeing sort of the desire to bring discounted cash flow or traditional sort of fundamental valuation structures to these assets seems to maybe not fully more easily applied to companies than it is to countries or economies. I'm curious how you sort of grok how to value blockchains or crypto projects more generally.
L1s and L2s, I always think of it as an economy. How much economic activity can you generate? I mean, the native token is really just like charging tax in your native currency, right? So I think that's the most analogous way to kind of value and look at the success of a chain, right? Especially as we enter these next cycles where the bar just keeps getting higher, right? You could. Before you could just write a white paper and launch a project, right? and then DeFi summer came, and then you had to like, okay, I got to build something, right? I at least have to build something that barely works but kind of works.
Or you name it as a food, and it's okay.
Or you name it as a food, yeah. But it had a product. It had a smart contract. It just had to have a smart contract, right? The bar just keeps getting higher as the industry matures, and I think we are squarely in the revenue part. That bar is raised to like, you have to actually build a real business.
Go ahead.
So so for the L1 or L2, kind of how do you compare these? How do you look at those things? Like, I look at them as like, okay, well, you're building an economy, and so however vibrant, however unique, whatever your comparative advantage is to the other economies that people can go use, like, that's how I'm going to judge whether you're doing well or not.
When I think through that lens, like wanting to export your native currency and have people existing in other economies own it and have productive use of it is obviously fundamental to the success of the US. So why
absolutely not? The other side of that though is like like the other byproduct of this is just like the good vibes, right? Like, typically like you get ahead in crypto by like fighting with people, and it's very crab mentality, right? Pulling people down. Like, if anyone does anything remotely near what you do, even if it's not remotely near, even if your token is doing well, they don't like it. And that crab mentality, I think, is really bad. I think what Solana and Monad were able to demonstrate to the entire ecosystem is something very mature, which is like, hey, we can be friendly. Like, there are benefits in us working together. Like, you do exist, and you are you are valid, right? Like, and I just like that. And I think I wish to see more of that.
So I think you're saying L1s and L2s as economies. Do you see Wormhole in a similar dynamic there, or is Wormhole closer to this sort of company structure within the economies?
I think it plays this like like it's almost like a higher level, right? Where it's involved in all of the economies, and it by the nature of the infrastructure that it's building. So what we want to see more than anything is economic activity across the entire world of crypto increase, because that's going to benefit us. And so whether that means incubating projects, seeding ideas, launching new projects and products that help and allow for more volume and more activity and less barriers for people to kind of interact with each other, I think that's really our focus and our goal.
I'm interested in maybe what the strategic motivation was within Wormhole to incubate this. Is it a desire, like looking for more revenue streams, just kind of an obvious gap in the market? Like what drove you guys?
All of the above. I think it's, all of the things that you would want to see. You want to see adoption for your technology in a very meaningful way. We had 2 launches yesterday, actually. This is the one that the Solana ecosystem is talking a lot about, and it makes sense. But we also built the canonical bridge for ETH to Monad for the Monad team, right? And that's also using the NTT standard, right? So like we had 2 major launches on Monday. So our motivation really is seeing a pain point in the market, understanding that we have a unique position that we can leverage. Not just on the tech side, but also on the ecosystem side, to make something really special happen. And I think we did a good job. I think there's a lot more to do, and I'm excited for the next couple of launches.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. Are you able to tease what some of your next couple launches are, or how you're thinking about it?
Not yet, because they're all very like. They're all up in the air, but they will be large assets, very sought after. Like I told you, the rubric, like these will be assets that the Solana ecosystem wants, right, and Josh, that's what we will try to do.
What is,
I mean, hype, no brainer.
Literally hype. Get the hype. There we go. That's what I'm talking about.
We got a bunch. You guys, I'll keep you guys updated. I'll DM you guys on the side when we know of the next one.
Word. Yeah, awesome, man. I mean, I think this trend of everything becoming an exchange, I think, is notable to me right now. I think what we had the Helios team come out with, is it Orb, Josh? Is that what it was called?
Yep.
I think seeing Sunrise come out around the same time. Clearly, this is where a ton of value is exchanged and can be captured by teams that are able to offer a differentiated and beneficial product. So it seems like a very competitive space, and yet I don't know. I think the approach you guys have taken here feels differentiated in its simplicity and its directness, and I think is building on an insight that is very much emergent within the space, but maybe not fully grokked by most people. And I think that's part of this sort of updating our priors and seeing the industry mature more, and folks maybe holding on to ways of the past and not fully stepping into the future here. So I find it fascinating. Very, very simple idea, and yet I think it's a very intriguing one to me. So yeah, do keep us in the loop as you move forward with it, and would love to see some of the data behind it. I think we have seen a lot of open questions about what's actually happening behind the scenes. I think the fact that there isn't much information on the website has increased the desire for people to understand what's actually going on there. So as you share that, please send it our way.
Appreciate it, man. I really appreciate the support and you guys having me on. Yeah, we definitely will share it. We'll keep sharing, and we'll hopefully next time we speak, it'll be another unique launch that hopefully you guys enjoyed.
Love it. Our doors are open, man.
Appreciate it.
Awesome, brother. Best of luck.
Peace.
Bye.